So 4 and 6 years ago, I was part of every game developer's wet dream. We were ranking #1 and #2 on the US App Store. I don't know why the graphics are so... is there something about the resolution? All right. Well, we were launching the games Fun Run. And with Fun Run, you were chasing cute forest animals and experiencing the Mario Kart experience on mobile. You were competing with your friends in real time, and the graphics are still pretty pixelated. Sorry, guys. I guess we'll just have to deal with this. So with the Fun Run games, they didn't just go to the top of the charts by itself. Actually, when it launched, it was pretty lonely. There were not that many developers, players out there playing the game. But after spending a lot of time tweaking, optimizing, listening to feedback, suddenly the masses started to pour in. And the inflection point came as the game introduced a Twitter competition where they were encouraging users to tweet about #FunRun for a chance to win in-game currency. And then following this, you could come to any high school in the US and it would look like this.
Oh, yes! Oh, yes! Oh,
So today, the Fun Run IP has reached over 100 million downloads. But today, replicating a success like Fun Run is pretty hard. Three of the reasons it did really well was that the game app space wasn't that saturated. Secondly, it was introducing a new and unique type of gameplay. And third, it had a very simple game design so that anyone should be able to start and play the game. And today, I want to actually talk about low-budget growth tactics with you, because when it all comes down to it, how you're growing your games shouldn't be relying solely on spending a lot of money for user acquisition. Actually, when I'm talking to a lot of companies, their least resort, if their game is not performing, they're like, we're just going to double down on user acquisition and hope that it's going to save us. But actually, if your game isn't doing really well, it's usually going to resort in a bleeding bucket like this one. So what is it that you can do to really leverage your users and be able to grow your user base without spending the big bucks like all the big studios are doing? There's actually some very simple things that you can do, and it's something that me and my partner at Megacool is really doubling down on to really figure out how can you increase that engagement and virality for your games without having to spend the big dollars. And so actually this is bringing everything back to basic, because it's something called first-time user experience. And it's something that all users is going to experience trying your game. With the first-time user experience, what we're talking about is that first session. What is happening in that session, and what type of friction points occur that may result in them leaving your game? Because the fact is that 80% on average is only going to open your game and play it once. So you have one shot at showing them that it's worth their while to return. So I always find it really, really hard whenever I try a new game, and this is the first screen that pops up. I think about 50% of the games I play, this is the first thing that someone asks me to. Can I see a raise of hands? How many people, when this is the first thing you see in a game, usually click OK? So 3 people. How many click don't allow? So why do you still keep it in your games? So there's nothing wrong with push notification, don't get me wrong. There is something wrong with the timing of asking this. Because if 3 out of, 50 people are only accepting it, why don't you wait on introducing this until a point in time in the game when it makes sense for the user to opt in? A game that I think does this really well is a game called HQ Trivia. There you actually have to be alerted for their live events when with the push notifications. So it really makes sense for you as a user to opt in because you really want to have that information. But another thing that is really important when it comes to that first-time user experience is the tutorial and onboarding. And how many here have played Mario Run? A few of you. So when you play that, do you remember this sequence here? Anyone remember how much time it took for you to get to that scene? 6 minutes. You must really want to play Mario Run to stick along for 6 minutes before you can actually play the game. Anyone remember the original? How much time that took? 0. They just threw you in there. You had to figure it out yourself. You started at the left of the screen, and then you had to hit right to actually start doing anything. It was part of the game to teach it to you. It wasn't like, I'm sure the team had very good thoughts behind putting you through all those steps, but it didn't really make you want to play the game much more. Like, the game in itself is what you're there for. So really think about how you're building up the tutorial and onboarding process. Remember, why are your users there? When we were launching Fun Run 2, we actually A/B tested what the users were doing in terms of retention with or without a tutorial. And it turned out that users without a tutorial actually retained longer. So we actually moved it away and hid it in the settings scene. So whatever works for you, I don't know, but you should really test it. Test it and figure out what that is. Because when you're making this first-time user experience, it should be so simple and intuitive that both a toddler and your grandma can do it. So how many here have tested your games on your grandma? 1. Good job. I hope next time more of you are doing this, because it may sound stupid, but if you really want to figure out like what is communicated to you, so what do they see, what is the intuitive next steps for them, it's really about how is your grandma figuring this out. So my first point of today is to really think about where are your friction in the game, because we don't have to talk about marketing your game without this thing really working out for you. It doesn't matter. It's going to be a bleeding bucket. So you really think about that. So going from that experience and over to emotions and engagement, sorry. With engagement is driven by emotions. And in your game, there should be elements that are resulting in high arousal. There should be like things that make you really happy and really mad. And I think a good example of a game that does this is Space Team. I'm wondering how many here have tried Space Team before? A few of you? The rest of you are totally missing out. It's a great game where you work together as a team to launch a spaceship. We actually play it a lot in our team as a way to like break the ice in the morning. And so here's just a clip of the game.
Activate Sigma spout.
Set meter.
Activate
Pick up 6.
Everybody
Pick up 2.
Everybody shut up.
Oh my god! Activate solar fan.
Solar fan. Solar fan.
It's really cool. And it really brings out the emotions. Like you're about to lose, but you're losing together, and you're just being able to bring it back in and making it work regardless. So check it out and see if there's elements of this you can bring to your game. Another example, it's again the HQ Trivia game, where it's really a live trivia game where you can talk together. You can try to win money by answering 12 quiz points. And there are people that are meeting up in groups. I've heard of companies where they stop the workday just to collaborate and seeing if they can win this game. They have 2 live events a day. It really brings out the emotion and partnerships. And when we're talking about emotions, when you really like something, you want to share with others. And there's one very basic way of sharing. It's to say, hey everyone, play Space Team. There's another thing coming from your game in itself. Like, how do you really tell the world from within? And when we claim that sharing is broken, it's because this is usually what happens when game studios implement sharing. You put a Twitter and Facebook button in your game, and you expect it to go viral. Anyone guilty? Because super shy. What happens here is that, like, how many here have shared to Facebook? It's like 5 of 50, so not that many. How many share things via private channels like WhatsApp or messaging? A few more. Not that many as I expected. But when you're sharing from games, it's usually a screenshot like this, as in Krusty Road. Krusty Road did a great job here where you capture the crash, and then you could share it to whatever channel you wanted. And the good thing about sharing an image from a game is that images says more than 1,000 words, which means that it's much easier to convey what the game is about by sharing a screenshot. But what's even better is if you add animations to it. And before we get into that, we have to settle something. Who are you? Are you a GIF or a GIF person? Can I see a raise of hand of who here says GIF? And who here says GIF? Oh. To please the crowd, we have to say GIF. So, a GIF says more than 50 images. What I mean by that is the animation around capturing what a game is about is much better than just sharing a static screenshot in most cases. And one example is how Cats is doing it. So following a session of the game, you're actually able to share that replay right away if you want to. And you can share it to whatever channel you'd like. But back to sharing is broken. And it's not primarily broken because you're only leveraging Facebook and Twitter. It's broken because there isn't much thought put into why your users want to share. Like, what is the emotion that they want to convey? And we've been looking into the data for this, and it turns out that the majority of people that are sharing, they actually want to share to messaging channels. And maybe more surprising than not is that the second is email. Third is Facebook, and fourth is Twitter. What this shows is that we're now more likely to share privately than social. And it's something that resonates very much with me. I don't want to share to the friends that I've been building up my presence with over 10 years on Facebook because they may not be interested in these things. It's more relevant to the close friends I know are interested in these things. Another part of this is when you're leveraging your users to share, why don't make it more fun? Like, usually what we see is that someone will add a sharing text being like, I just beat level 100. Come join me playing this game. It really sounds like some advertisement going on, and you're not that likely to engage with it. One thing we saw worked really well with the Fun Run 2 was that we would actually look to Twitter and see what are our users saying when they're sharing. What is their emotions with their game? And we would trigger this based on different events in the game. So if you played without winning, you would get having a blast. If you won, you would say, all those guys just got washed. Or, get them a level, son. Or, when you catch an L. These words are not very familiar to my vocabulary, but it turned out that it was exactly what our users were saying. And if you were playing a golden fox, which was the rarest character in the game, then you could be triggered to say, I just beat a golden fox. And what I'm trying to make a point out of here is that with suggesting text to your users, they're actually going to get like a variable reward every time they hit the share button because they don't know what type of text you're presenting them with, and it's going to feel much more engaging for them to be sharing these things. So my second tip is to make sharing emotions simple and frictionless for your users. It's all about like, are you making it simple for them or not? So going from emotions to virality. There is a difference between virality and going viral. Every game has an element of virality to them. It's all about how many users is one per user bringing in to the game. What we can think about is if every user brings in one new user, you have a virality of 1, and you're going to see this hockey stick of going what we consider viral. If it takes 5 users to get 1 user in, then you have a virality coefficient of 0.2. So this is a difference here, and ways that you can leverage this, just like Uber has been doing, Dropbox was doing it, it's called referrals. And you can incentivize users by triggering something that is core to the gaming experience. And I think HQ, sorry for bringing them up again, but they're very much in the moment, but they're doing this really well because core to the game is the life system. And the only way you can get extra lives is by getting friends, referring friends to the game. So the flow is that when you're in the game, you hit the invite button, you get to see your referral code, you can share that, and you can choose whatever channel you want to share it to. Another example of a referral, however not incentivized, is how Mario Run is doing it. They are allowing you to invite friends with messaging and email. When you're doing this, you're getting to share a text like this. The recipient clicks the link, gets taken to the App Store, can open the App Store, and then install, and then you have to send another friend request. I think that Super Mario Run can do this much better by removing the friction. So another suggested workflow here for them would be to send something more graphical and being more to the point. And then when the user clicks the link, it can open the App Store, and then you're automatically friends in the game. You don't have to send another friend request because you clicked each other's links. And if you have the game installed already, you should actually skip this second step and go straight into game and start playing. So when it comes to doing referrals, it can both boost new installs as well as re-engaging existing users for a game. So my third point of today is to leverage referrals for your game. And this is, there's a lot of technologies out there that you can use for this. And to summarize this, I really hope that when you think about how to market your game, you don't start with a marketing budget. You actually start with what friction points are in my game today that I can remove so that more players are actually entering the game and experiencing it and can actually be players that are going to be long-term players. And then secondly, you have to make sharing these emotions that spur virality as frictionless and simple as possible. And third, find a way to leverage referrals for your games. And I hope that this was informative. If you want the slides, you can email me. And next time we meet, I hope you can show for the same type of engagement as Black Friday in the US is yielding every year. So this is it for me. Thank you very much for listening.
You